Hi. Now that your paper mache has completely dried, you're ready to start painting. And as you can see, the first step, which I've already done, is to paint it all white. Just a light coat of white as a base coat so that the colors you put on it after that will pop. Once you paint it white, I'm going to show you a method of painting. You could paint it however you want, make yourself happy, but I'm going to show you a couple of tricks that will make it really easy to get your painting to look really cool. So, what I'd like you to do is choose 3 colors of paint. One, sort of a middle tone, medium color paint, like not too dark, not too light. That's going to be the base that you're going to start with. And then choose one dark color for your shadow and one light color for the highlights. Now, you could choose any 3 colors. You could choose like an orange, for example, for the base color, red for the shadows, and yellow for the highlights. Or you could choose pink for the base color, red for the shadows, and white for the highlights. Any combination like that. So with this guy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use green for the base, blue for the shadows, and yellow for the highlights. And I really strongly recommend using a palette for painting. And you can just put a little bit of paint. You can see I put a little green here, a little blue here on your palette. And it's a good way to be able to mix your paints rather than dipping into a pot of paint. So I'm just going to start painting and just paint the whole thing green without thinking about what part I'm painting. Just go ahead and paint the whole thing green, and there we go. The whole thing is painted green. Once you've finished painting your base coat, the next step is to do the shadow color. And so I'm going to choose another brush. I'm going to get my shadow color blue and start painting all the shadows. Now, here's the part where you want to turn off the part of your brain that names things. Don't think about painting the nose and the mouth and the eyes or the legs. The only 2 things you should be looking at are concave and convex. Concave is something that goes in, like a dent. Convex is something that comes out, like a, like a bubble, like a bump. And anything that's concave, paint your shadow color. So I'm just going to go ahead and, without thinking, without, any little part and anything, even if it wasn't an intentional shape, like it was just some sort of random dip in your sculpture, or maybe a little wrinkle in the paper mache, any little area that goes in a little bit, you want to go ahead and paint with your shadow color. Without really thinking about it too much or worrying too much, just go ahead and paint it all your shadow areas. And once you've done that, if you want to, you can try and soften those edges a little bit by getting back to your middle range color and going over some of those areas so that the contrast doesn't feel too strong. You don't have to do this, but you can just go back in and sort of blend it so that it doesn't feel like such a sharp contrast. And again, all you're doing, you're not thinking too much, you're just looking at the shapes and the shadows and the light. Okay. And once you've done that, you'll take your highlight color and this is the other trick. Besides the part about only looking at concave and convex, when you get to the part of painting on your highlights, you're going to use a dry brush technique. And what that means is what it sounds like. You dip your brush in the paint, but you dry it off on your palette or on a piece of newspaper, so there's not very much paint on it. And then you just take that brush and very lightly, you should probably wait till your paint is dry, the other layers, which I'm not doing now for lack of time. But let everything that the first two layers that you did dry, and then go ahead with your dry brush technique. And what's going to happen is that dry brush is going to catch the kind of the wrinkles of the paper mache, and it's just going to be on the highest high points of your painting, and it'll make it the whole thing almost shimmer when you get that, so you can sort of see what I'm doing here. And then it's just catching the highest points because of the dry brush technique. And there we go. Now, you can just sort of keep doing that as much as you like, and I'm going to show you another one that I've already done that process on. This is this piece, and the colors I chose for this one were kind of a light blue for the base color, a dark blue for the shadows, and white for the highlights. And you can see how the white caught the wrinkles of the paper mache, and it gives it this really special quality. Finally, after you've covered the paint, you've done that process over the whole thing, the next step is to paint in the details and the features, like the mouth, the nostrils, the nose, the eyes. You can see I've already painted the little horns white on this, and any little extra details that you want to paint. And remember the eyes, as the great Daniel Polnow used to say, the soul of the puppet is in the eyes of the puppet. The soul of the puppet is in the eyes of the puppet. So the eyes are really important, and I'm gonna go ahead and get some black paint to paint. I've already painted the eyes white, and now I'm gonna give him some pupils. And I'm going to want him to look at me, so and there we go. Now the final step, which really helps bring the eyes to life after you've painted everything else, is to paint a little white sparkle in the eye, and that really helps bring a puppet to life. So once the black pupil dries, I'm going to go ahead and just pop a little dot of white paint. And there you go. So have fun with it. Now you can make your own paper mache animal. Okay, have fun.